Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be doing a little bit of a longer form video, not a crazy long form video, but just a longer form video, right? And today I kind of wanted to talk about three, because in my opinion there are three kind of bubbling transfer rumors that are floating around Manchester United this week, right? Or at least to the start of this week, right? Now I've made shorts today, honestly, yes, about the simple fact that I do think Bruno Fernandes is done at Manchester United. And I think I'm going to start with that story because I think this is a precursor to another story that we'll talk about a little later. And in my opinion, the fact that the Saudi deadline, quote unquote, passed and the story still isn't dead in the water, the fact that now there's a new deadline for Bruno to agree to move to Saudi, right? The fact that there's complications, maybe it's sounding like Bruno Fernandes' family doesn't want to move, but he's open to the move. The fact that he's talking to Saudi, right? I personally do think that Bruno Fernandes has already, despite nobody reporting on this, let's say concretely, I think Bruno Fernandes has agreed to move to Al Hilal. I think this because I am looking at what Manchester United are doing, right? We are in a summer transfer window, right? Which normally, sadly, as United fans, we know we don't move for players quickly. We don't like to sign players before July. We don't like to sign players before the end of the financial year. We don't like to sign players before we get the new kit announcement, right? But we already did that with Cunha, which I'm pleased with. Although I do believe that Cunha was not, it's not part of the situation that I'm going to describe today, right? But I think United are moving swiftly on to new targets, such as the likes of Bryan Mbeumo from Brentford, because they know that Bruno Fernandes is leaving. I think they're simply just waiting right now to agree a fee between Al Hilal and Manchester United. In my opinion, I think Bruno has already agreed his personal terms and everything with Al Hilal. I think right now United is probably trying to delay, probably trying to sign the likes of Bryan Mbeumo. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow we'll be talking about a potential striker coming in. Who knows? I think those are the big three positions that United desperately want to sign this summer, regardless of who leaves and who doesn't. And I think those are the two more positions, another number 10 and a striker, that should Bruno Fernandes leave, which in my opinion he is. It's nothing concrete yet. Let me know down in the comments below, though, if you guys think that Bruno Fernandes is actually gone already. We'll see. But I think those two positions, I wouldn't be surprised if we see tomorrow or before the end of the week the likes of, we're agreeing personal terms with a Gyökeres or a striker of some sort, right? A Mateta. Who knows who the striker will be, right? We're not really here. Maybe we could talk about that later in the show. But right now we're talking about the Bruno Fernandes situation. I think United do know that he's gone. I think right now they're just trying to prep. As I mentioned in my two shorts today, I do believe United are in not a meltdown scenario, but they know once Brentford, once Sporting, once any team that we go to try to buy a player from this summer will know that Bruno Fernandes has left the club. They'll know, oh, look, United just got 100 million plus euros for Bruno Fernandes. Whatever player they want to buy, let's chalk in another 10, 15, 20 million euros. And I think United right now know that they need to get a few players in before this Bruno Fernandes saga concludes with what I think was him going to be leaving the club, right? Now, I could be well off the mark. Let me know down in the comments if you guys think I am off the mark. And the simple fact that you guys don't think maybe perhaps that Bruno is leaving. In my opinion, I just don't see how we agree personal terms with Bryan Mbeumo today, which is the second story that I want to get into. How we are now negotiating with Brentford for Bryan Mbeumo, right? I don't see how that transfer happens if we don't already know that a big name signing or a big name player is leaving the club, right? Because from what we are led to believe, right, the club has no money, right? Sir Jim Ratcliffe is reluctant to pump money into transfers. The Glazers, let's not even talk about them. They're not going to pump money into transfers. Come on. I mean, I know in previous summers we've had crazy summers where we haven't qualified for the Champions League, or we've always qualified for Europe normally, but right, this might be a meltdown summer. We'll see how that goes. That they've pumped in money, but I just don't think they're that willing anymore to pump in money, especially since Ineos bought the club. Now, this is a chance, honestly, for Ineos to gain a little of perhaps my trust and maybe some of your guys' trust, right? If we do sell Bruno Fernandes, which I think is the right move for 100 million plus. We need to sign big name players. We can't sell Bruno Fernandes and sign some League Two midfielder or something. We need proven players. I think players, especially Premier League proven players, because obviously we know, sadly, next season, no European football. We need players that have done it in the Premier League consistently over a season or two at least, and look like they could be top caliber European competition players, but will get us into those European competition players, right? And I think already with Cunha coming in and with the potential of signing Brian Mbuemo, that's adding at least next season, who knows, maybe another 20, 30 Premier League goals, right, to our tally. And I think that moves us up the table significantly. Perhaps not enough to be in the conversation for European football, but definitely closer, right? Now, if we can add a striker on top of that, which I am going to predict that, who knows, by the end of this week, I do think we'll have either personal terms agreed with a striker or we'll know definitely who the striker target is. Because I think by next week, Bruno Fernandes is gone. And I think by next week, clubs will know that we'll be getting that money in, and they'll be starting to charge crazy amounts for players that realistically, yes, are they worth that much? Potentially, but we could have got them a little cheaper, right? Which honestly helps the team in a sense of, if we can get players in early, one, there is a thing to be said about the fact that we never get players in and managers never realistically have a preseason with their new signings. So if we get an Mbuemo, the Cunha deal, and a striker at least before preseason, before Ruben Amorim comes back, I think that sets Ruben Amorim up much better for the coming season, right? Two, if we get these players in before the sale of Bruno Fernandes, I think we save a little bit on the price tags for these players, which then maybe opens up the option to buy another center midfielder, one that can play in the pivots that Ruben Amorim likes. Another goalkeeper, right? We know that goalie is a contentious position at Manchester United, right? Onana doesn't look like he's going to get any better and doesn't look like he's going to mold. Bayender, not, in my opinion, is not at the caliber that we need, even as a second string goalkeeper, right? In my opinion, we need two goalies, but we'll probably only get one. But it is what it is. So that's the first story that I wanted to talk about, in my opinion, right? Because I do think that Bruno Fernandes is gone. And let me know that in the comments. I mean, some of you probably will disagree with the fact that I want to sell Bruno Fernandes. Realistically, if we were in Europe and we had money coming in from Europe and the club wasn't in the scenario that we are in now, I would not be selling Bruno Fernandes, but sadly, that is the scenario. Or maybe you guys don't think that he's already sold. Maybe we are just going for Brian Mbuemo and we're kind of throwing caution to the wind. Maybe Ineos is investing in the club. Who knows? Let me know that in the comments below. But speaking of Brian Mbuemo, I am ecstatic to see that we are talking to him. And apparently, according to Fabrizio Romano and David Ornstein, personal terms are agreed with Manchester United. And Mbuemo has chosen Manchester United, which is special to me in two ways, right? Because way number one, United, no European football, but we still have the pull to bring in players. Let's be realistic. Brian Mbuemo will fit into a Newcastle team that's competing in the Champions League, an Arsenal team that's fighting for a title next season, maybe even a Liverpool team or a Tottenham team that is looking to improve, right? And he still chose to come to United after our worst Premier League season ever. So this whole banter from rival fans, I think, is kind of like blowing up in their faces. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, we had a bad season, and we do deserve the banter in a way, right? Because it is what it is. That's kind of the way football works and the way that fans work, right? But we still have the pull to bring in these top caliber players. And I think this move in particular, I was ecstatic about the Cunha move because Cunha is a player that immensely improves our attack, immensely gives us depth in a position that we need now that we play two number 10s. But also, I was happy to see that he wanted to come to Manchester United, but we know that he wanted to come to Manchester United above all else, right? It didn't matter if we had European football, it didn't matter if whatever the case was, right? But Brian Mbeumo, the situation is a little different because we were able to attract this player despite him wanting European football, in my opinion, despite him having offers on the table from clubs that are going to compete for a title next season, be in Europe next season, right? And we were still able to pull this player and attract this player to come to Manchester United. Now, is the deal done? No, absolutely not. We are still pretty far away, in my opinion. I think maybe by the end of the week we'll have a here we go, but this is not deal done. Let me be perfectly clear about that. It is not deal done. All it is personal terms agreed with the player. And we know things can go crazy, right? He could still sign for somebody else. Hopefully not, knock on wood, hopefully not. But I think this is a step in the right direction. And I think once we get this deal done, we move on to a striker quickly before Bruno leaves or just shortly after Bruno leaves. And I think we've done a large portion of what needed to be done this summer, right? Then we focus on the goalie, the center mids, potentially a left wing back and a right wing back. Who knows? Who knows? Because I'm honestly surprised and shocked about Ineos this summer, right? I did not expect this. I don't even think they expected this. I don't think that they thought that a Saudi club will come in for Bruno Fernandes and they'd have this much money to spend, potentially. But this is an opportunity for Ineos to gain a little bit more trust from myself, obviously, a fan, but also you guys, because some of you may not trust Ineos. Me personally, I don't trust them fully. I mean, it's better than just sole Glazer ownership, in my opinion, but at the end of the day, them and Ineos and the Glazers, Ineos jumped into the ship with the Glazers at the helm. You know, it's not the outcome we would have wanted, but they have an opportunity here, and it looks like they're pushing quite hard to not only get the fans on board, but realistically get the club back on track, because right now we are ways off. And now let's talk a little bit about the final big transfer rumor that is on the table tonight, because Rasmus Højlund to Inter Milan is looking likely in the form of a loan move. And that's where I get a little concerned, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, we know most likely we'll be going for a striker this summer, and I do hope so. I mean, not hope so. I know we will, because the team needs a new striker, and I think Ruben knows that he needs a new striker, and I think Ineos know that they need to get Ruben a striker, right? But Højlund leaving is not that much of an issue to me. Don't get me wrong. Personally, I think Højlund can improve. He was, in my opinion, atrocious this season. But I think he can improve, and I think he could become a competent striker at United. Does he have the time to do that? No, obviously, clearly not. But the fact that it's a loan move to Inter Milan causes me some worry. Unless there is an obligation to buy, I would not be doing a loan movement. Even if there's an option to buy for Inter, I would not do a loan movement. It has to be an obligation to buy, because United need the funds. Even with a Bruno sale, that doesn't. It's not just all peach and roses, right? It's not. We're not financially out of the deep end, right? And for that reason, I do think that the movement of Rasmus Højlund needs to be a sale this summer, right? And we know he has admirers in Italy. We know from his time in Italy that he was very highly touted. And I do think that at an Italian club, or honestly outside of the Premier League, he will do quite well. He will do what we brought him in to do at United, right? Because at Atalanta, he was good. In European competitions for Manchester United, he was quite good, right? In my opinion, I mean, that first season under Ten Hag in the Champions League, it was, right? He was a top goal scorer in the group stage. And then in the Europa League this season, he did okay. Not the best, but he did okay. So in my opinion, he has a value. And I think that teams outside of England see the value in him. And I think Inter Milan are honestly trying to finesse us a little bit. Now, why? I'm not sure, because they have Marcus Thuram, they have Lautaro Martinez, unless maybe perhaps one of their strikers is available. Now, this is an opinion piece. From this point on, it's pretty much opinion, right? But if if Inter Milan buy Rasmus Højlund, does that make one of their strikers available? Because Alessandro Martinez or a Marcus Thuram, I think, would vastly improve this Manchester United front line. Don't get me wrong, I would still prefer to go for a Gyökeres if that's potentially still on the table. I would still prefer to go for a Sesko or a Victor Osimhen, right? But if those two strikers are available on the market for some reason, please put our name in the hat. In my opinion, I think we would. I would love for us to go for any of the Inter strikers currently, but that's kind of my 2 cents take on the Rasmus Holland deal. I'm gonna ask, right? But I have a feeling I'll know that. Are you guys agreeing and okay with Rasmus Holland leaving the club? And I know, trust me, I know 90% of people are gonna agree that he should leave, needs to leave, and are happy and are probably just like, get out of my club. It is what it is, right? I'm not as gung ho about that, right? But I do think it's time for Rasmus Holland to move on. I think out of the two strikers that we have, I think he's the most likely one to move on. Obviously, Xerxes has only been here for a while, and Xerxes has shown potential of playing in other positions like the number 10 role. Now, sell Hoyland. Is Xerxes plus another striker enough depth up top? Or is the plan to have Xerxes, Obi Martin, and a new number 9 up top? Because I think that is potentially enough for next season, right? Now, the jury is still out on Xerxes. Who the number 9 will be, no clue. Maybe we'll make a video talking about potential number 9 signings for Manchester United. Who knows? Stay tuned to the channel, subscribe, because that video might be coming out soon. But obviously, let me know down in the comments your opinion on any of the transfer stories that we talked about today. I appreciate you guys being here. Subscribe for more, and I shall see you guys next time. Take care.